We have finally learnt about Zombies Chronicles 2 for Black Ops 4 Zombies, which a lot of people have been debating back and forth on whether or not it was real or just clickbait from YouTubers, but now we finally have tangible evidence from the files of the game that yes, Zombies Chronicles 2 was planned for Black Ops 4, however it was scrapped. Just like everyone has been talking about, it really sucks that Treyarch have not been able to come out and say the exact situation that led to this. Of course, it's probably because they were trying to do chaos and close up the Ether story at the exact same time, which probably wasn't a wise decision, and it resulted in them having to cancel a lot of content that was planned, and Black Ops 4 Zombies just wasn't generally well received, nowhere near as much as Black Ops 3. And because of that, it seems like a lot of Zombies content unfortunately ended up getting scrapped. Treyarch were then pushed to take over development of Black Ops Cold War that was previously being headed by Ravensoft and Sledgehammer, so they were pushed onto that project instead of continuing with Zombies, because it seems like there was supposed to be 2 years of content planned for Black Ops 4 Zombies, where the first year, all of the DLC maps were supposed to be chaos only. Even the description on the PlayStation Store that was initially released stated as such, and then the second season of content, which would have been in its year 2, would have been all Ether maps. You would have had to pay an additional price for that, but a lot of that content ended up getting scrapped, and instead we just saw 2 chaos maps and 2 Ether maps in the Black Ops Pass. Anyways, we finally know the maps that were actually cancelled, because there's been so many rumors over the past couple of years, and we don't really know how much of them have been true or not. Now, interestingly enough, I've actually recorded a whole video talking about the fact that it does seem like Treyarch are planning to reuse maybe some of the content that they were working on for the cancelled maps in Black Ops 4 in the future, because it seems like TranZit could potentially be returning, because the jet gun has been found in the files of COD 2024 Zombies, so it's possible they may take a lot of the assets and ideas they were working on in Black Ops 4 and reinvent them and reutilize them, so we may see some of that content again in the future. But let's talk specifically about the cancelled content. So, as I was saying before, it seems like the Black Ops Pass was originally supposed to be all Chaos maps, and there was actually a map that was supposed to be taking place in Morocco in the Chaos story, and there was an early content schedule that was released, and this was supposed to be DLC 2, releasing after Dead of the Night. However, it seemed to have been scrapped before Black Ops 4 had even released, so it was never really planned in the DLC content cycle, and instead the lore was then reused for the comic books. And these comic books showed the backstory and origins of Bruno, who was previously an officer in the French Foreign Legion, and he was looking for the Sentinel artifact, of course the thing that causes the zombies in the Chaos story. And by the end of the comics, he concluded with Alistair Rhodes and managed to get this item. But yeah, this ended up just being told in the comics instead of a physical map in-game. I guess it wasn't really that necessary to the overall story of Chaos, so I understand why it was scrapped. And maybe they reused a lot of ideas for this for Ancient Evil, because as it turns out, Ancient Evil was never in the original content schedule for Black Ops 4 Zombies that was leaked, so that is interesting to note, unless that map would have came in its year 2. We're not exactly sure. Now, apparently there was another map that was going to be set in Russia for the Chaos story. This would have been DLC 3, and we don't really know anything about this map, but the interesting thing is that even Dead of the Night was supposed to be a launch map at some point for Black Ops 4, but they couldn't get the voice actors for the characters on time, so that's why that ended up being a prequel map, even though it should have basically been the start of the story, or at least one of the earlier maps, so that is interesting to note. I guess in the original schedule, we would have got a Morocco DLC 1, Russia DLC 2, or maybe we would have gotten 9 as DLC 1, Morocco DLC 2, Russia DLC 3, because apparently 9 was swapped out as a launch map with Dead of the Night, which is probably for the best, since 9 wasn't very beloved. Now, there was another map found in the files of the game called ZM_Blue, and this references an Earth Throne Room waterfall and a wooden door frame, and apparently this map was supposed to release after Ancient Evil. Now, we can't really take out much for this map, but considering it has a wooden door frame, it's probably the Library of Alexandria, where of course we were left on a cliffhanger at the end of Ancient Evil. We knew Medusa was heading to the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, and that probably would have been the final map, but it ended up getting cut entirely, and I really hope that Treyarch can reuse some of this Chaos story stuff in the future, because we do know that in Vanguard Zombies, they did actually retcon the Chaos story to now be a part of the Dark Ether storyline, so it seems like the Chaos story just took place within the prior Ether multiverse, even though that was never initially planned. Jason Blundell said Ether and Chaos were entirely separate.
Are the two stories connected in any way? Is it a clean break?
They are not connected. They're not connected. They're not connected anyway. They are two separate stories completely. So no one believes me, by the way. No one believes me. I've said this out now multiple times. I even said it to your camera. I've said it multiple times. They are not connected.
But they've changed it, so Alistair Rhodes apparently exists now within the Dark Ether story, but it's a different version from the version in the Chaos story, since that was in the prior multiverse. It seems like the Sentinel artifacts and everything didn't actually unfold the way it did in the Chaos story, and all of the stuff from the Chaos story likely just got sent into the Dark Ether. Now, there are then 2 Ether maps found in the files of the game. Now, like I said, these were probably going to release in the year 2 for the game. Now, we ended up receiving Alpha Omega and then Tagged Toten as the final maps for the Ether story, a Nuketown remake and a Call of the Dead remake, which seemed quite odd, but it seems like many other maps for Ether were planned, but they ended up getting cut. Now, what's also interesting is it seems like there was actually planned to be campaign DLC for Black Ops 4, I guess maybe the specialist stories, but of course the campaign was entirely cut for that game. We got the specialist story stuff, but that obviously all ended up getting cut, so it would have been awesome to see that content. Anyways, TranZit has been found in the files of the game, and apparently this was going to be a cancelled, obviously, Ether map, and there's loads of references to TranZit in the files of the game, referencing T-Atrix, 8th Call of Duty, so it's not referencing Black Ops 2, and there were many models found in the files of the game for remastered props for the bank, a radioactive sign, and an animal cage, and apparently this map was supposed to release after Alpha Omega, and this is what I've been speculating for quite some time. It made sense that I personally think we were going to go to Alpha Omega, and then afterwards we were going to get TranZit, Die, Rise, and Buried in a row, because of course the Victor's characters escaped from the cryogenic chambers on Alcatraz Island. It made sense that they would end up on their retrospective, their irrespective maps, the ones that they originally were on, so I think we were going to get Alpha Omega, and then the 3 Victor's maps afterwards, and it makes complete sense because of course in Blackout, there is of course the remake of Diner, and in multiplayer, on the museum map, they literally have the TranZit bus, Ted, and a bunch of other assets from TranZit, so it clearly seems like they were working on TranZit, and that's why there was assets for it in Blackout and also multiplayer, and there was even a bunch of Victor's assets on Nuketown, and literally in Blackout, the entirety of Buried is almost remastered, so I definitely think TranZit wasn't the only Victor's map we were supposed to see, because from this leak, they only referenced TranZit, but I definitely do think Die, Rise, and Buried were also planned, but it's not within this current leak. Now, like I said, I think we're going to see TranZit in the future, considering the jet gun has been found in the files of COD 2024 Zombies. Now, the final map that has been found in the files is referenced as DLC 4, and apparently this was going to be a scrapped Ether storyline map based around the Great War, and outfits and models for Crusader bosses were found in the files of the game, which were apparently going to be the playable characters on the map. And it seems like this map was going to be taking place in the Great War, where of course on Revelations we get the cycle continued, and then it jumps back to see our premise characters sent back in time as they fought in the medieval times wearing their night costumes. And of course this is on the exact same site of where Origins takes place, so it seems like this was supposed to be some sort of Origins remake. However, it seems like this was only based on Origins. It wasn't going to be a one-to-one recreation, because of course the map took place in the medieval time way before Origins, so even though it was on the same site, the layout and the map would have been basically an entirely new site. Maybe some slight similarities would have been there, such as the mound where the Revelations characters hold the original staff, so the staffs probably would have been the wonder weapons, just like on Origins, but the map would have been entirely different, and we probably would have seen us fighting the Apothecans, and the Keepers would have been helping us. That's probably what the map was supposed to be that we see within the Tag de Toe and ending.
Now we must go, quickly. There is a war to be fought.
War? What kind of war?
A war unlike any you have ever seen. The Great.
We're going to fight the war, Eddie. The Great War. Then, we're going back to the house to kill him and burn it all to the ground. Agartha, the Ether, the Infinite, everything.
Now, it's weird that this is listed as DLC 4 because we got Tag de Toe in the Call of the Dead remake instead as DLC 4, but in Revelations there was actually a cipher which suggests that Call of the Dead was always planned, at least from Black Ops 3, to be the final map for the Ether story. It seems like because they were trying to close up the Ether story, which had been going on for 10 years, they plan to close up the story with remade/remastered maps only, because that would be an easier way for them not to create loose ends and have to build up new lore for brand new maps, and instead these maps would essentially serve as ways to close up old lore and old loose ends, whereas if they went to entirely new locations, it would create whole new lore and information, and it would probably leave a lot more loose ends, which they didn't want when they were concluding the story. Now, seeing as this Origins remake set in the medieval time was listed as DLC 4, maybe what we were supposed to get within the Black Ops pass, that was the first 3 maps might have been Chaos, and then maybe the final one would have been an Ether map, and then afterwards we would have gotten the rest of the Ether maps in the Season 2. Maybe that's a possibility, and maybe some of the Chaos maps were also planned for Year 2. I'm sure plans were constantly changing though, that's what you have to bear in mind. Considering so many maps were cancelled, there were probably a billion different plans that never came to fruition, and the order of the maps releasing was probably changing constantly. So even though maybe at one point this was listed as DLC 4, maybe it was supposed to be the final map at one point, they were constantly changing their mind and changing what map they wanted to be positioned where in the story. I think things were constantly changing in development. Black Ops 4 seems like it had a very messy development cycle, but yeah, we finally know Zombies Chronicles 2 was officially real for Black Ops 4. Now, like I said, it probably wasn't going to actually be called Zombies Chronicles 2. They were supposed to just have 2 Black Ops passes. Maybe the first one was supposed to be just the Black Ops pass. The second year might have been called an Ether pass or something like that. It wouldn't have been called Zombies Chronicles 2 officially. There was even rumors that we were supposed to get classic faithful remasters of Mob of the Dead 5 and even Mob of the Dead in that game that never came out. So there's probably so many plans for this game that never came out. And like I said, I really hope that they do eventually do a TranZit remake and bring back a lot of this content in the future. Now, although Chaos has been cancelled, like I said, they could reuse these ideas for maps for future maps in the game within the Dark Ether story, especially now that they've retconned the Chaos story to be a part of the Dark Ether story. For example, we were supposed to go to the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, and although this was cancelled, there has actually been a mummy boss recently added in the Haunting event, and we know this is reusing assets and animations from COD 2024 Zombies that we'll see in the future, so maybe we are going to go to Egypt, and if so, that could reuse a lot of the ideas and plans they had for this cut Library of Alexandria map. But yeah, personally, I would like to see the Chaos story still continued and integrated into this new unified story with the Dark Ether story, where all CODs moving forward are basically part of one story. But yeah, so much got cancelled for Black Ops 4. I really do wonder what would have happened if they managed to pull off all of this content. I think the game would have been drastically different from what we ended up receiving, and it just sucks that Black Ops 4 Zombies was so poorly received that so much content got canned entirely. So much effort from the developers went into this game, and we ended up literally seeing not even half of the content that was planned, and we still got a lot of Zombies maps in this game. Of course, it launched with 4, we got then 4 DLC maps, 8 maps, brand new, and then apparently there was at least 5 of the maps planned, but probably 7, because I think TranZit, Die Rise and Buried were all in the works, not just TranZit, and that made complete sense. As I was saying, it was kind of odd that we woke up the Victor's characters and they went straight to Call of the Dead. That was really jarring. I personally think how it would have gone is we would have had Ultimus and Primus on Alpha Omega. We then would have gone to the Great War, because that's what, of course, the characters said they were heading to on the classified ending. Then we would have gotten the Great War map. Then we would have gotten TranZit, Die Rise and Buried. And then all the characters would have met up for the final DLC on Tag to Toan. So we would have had Victus, Ultimus, and Primus all in the same map. Unfortunately, so many plans ended up getting changed. I think the ending for Tag to Toan was probably going to still be quite similar thematically to what we ended up receiving, but it would have been on a much greater scale, much grander. Now, even we were supposed to see Dr. Monty in the game, but Malcolm McDowell didn't return, probably because they didn't have the budget for him, unfortunately. Apparently, he's even came out and said he was never approached by Treyarch to do voicing for Black Ops 4, so he was probably going to be a boss with the Shadow Man that we would have seen either at the end or on the Great War map. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're ready for the latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.